Jim McMahon once got fined for wearing a headband. He was a partier and a damn good quarterback too. He won 2 Super Bowls, nearly blinded himself with the fork, mooned a TV audience, drank nearly as much as his 350-pound teammate, partied with rock stars, played his best hungover, was the potential victim of a sniper, was the victim of the dirtiest hit in NFL history, and one time wore the wrong team's jersey. This is the story of Jim McMahon, the strangest quarterback in NFL history. And that's coming up right now. James Robert McMahon II, better known as Jim McMahon, was born on August 21st, 1959 in Jersey City, New Jersey. If you want any idea of what kind of kid he was, just know that at the age of 6, a young McMahon severed the retina in his right eye by poking it with the fork. Of course, that would later explain his penchant for a dark visor on the field and his trademark sunglasses off of it. As a child, McMahon found solace and purpose in football. His mother once said, "We told him to believe he was the best, and if he didn't, nobody else would." Excelling at Roy High School in Utah, McMahon's talent on the field earned him a scholarship to Brigham Young University. That's right, the most anti-authority quarterback of the 20th century was going to a Mormon university where sex and coffee are forbidden. How does anyone live under those conditions? His parents wanted him in a rigid environment, and of course somewhere where the coach would let him air it out. Only one of those reasons ended up really mattering. McMahon didn't like rules. He liked swearing, beer, and chewing tobacco. The beer on campus had to be discreet, but the 4-letter words never ceased. After recovering from an early knee injury at BYU, McMahon quickly ascended the depth chart as a quarterback under the tutelage of legendary coach Lavelle Edwards. By his junior season in 1980, he was a Davey O'Brien Award winner, a Sammy Baugh Trophy winner, and a unanimous All-American. He threw 47 touchdown passes and an NCAA record 4,571 yards. Everything between the lines was spectacular. Everything outside was touch and go. One of the most infamous incidents of McMahon's college career occurred during the 1980 Holiday Bowl against SMU. Frustrated by what he perceived as biased officiating, McMahon mooned a national television audience, earning himself a 1-game suspension. When McMahon was asked by a Utah reporter what his favorite memory was from BYU, he responded, "Leaving." But the numbers were so good, and the talent was so apparent that his nose for trouble didn't matter. In 1982, McMahon was selected by the Chicago Bears as the 5th overall pick in the NFL draft. His arrival in the Windy City injected new life into a struggling, once proud franchise. With his fearless playing style and knack for big plays, McMahon quickly endeared himself to Bears fans. His rookie year in 1982 was unconventional, to say the least. He walked directly into a players' strike that splintered his first season in Chicago. McMahon acclimated himself nicely with 9 touchdowns in 8 games, but the Bears finished with a 3-6 record. But every passing year got better. The Bears were building something special slowly but surely. They improved to 8-8 in 1983 and 10-6 a year later. Only in 1984, McMahon's season ended rather abruptly. During a critical 3rd and 4 play against the Raiders, McMahon seized the moment. Despite easily securing the first down, he kept running, refusing to yield as 2 Raiders defenders closed in on him. Hurtling towards the air, he found himself caught between defensive lineman Bill Pickle and linebacker Jeff Barnes in a mid-air collision. Literally in a pickle. Although McMahon recognized he was injured, he remained in the game for 3 additional plays. "I was rasping, croaking when I got back to the huddle," he recounted in his autobiography. McMahon was groaning in pain, doubled over, and peeing blood, which he described as resembling grape juice. Subsequently hospitalized, he was given a diagnosis of a lacerated kidney and then stayed there for the next 10 days. The injury sidelined McMahon for the remainder of the season, and adding to his frustration was the inability to consume alcohol for 3 weeks, a dry spell he noted as his longest since shortly after birth. McMahon was later quoted as saying the Bears would have won the Super Bowl that year had he not gotten hurt. And the next year pretty much proved that he was right. The Bears were a juggernaut, a furious all-time defense, and a starting quarterback that played with the intensity and selflessness of a middle linebacker. Chicago won 15 games in the regular season, outscoring their opponents 456 to 198, while McMahon combined for 18 touchdowns throwing and running. The rest of the NFC was no match for these vaunted Bears. The Giants and the Rams failed to score a point in the playoffs, and as for McMahon, he notched 4 touchdowns in those games, as well as a $5,000 fine from Pete Rozelle for wearing an Adidas logo on his signature headband. Somehow that's a big no-no. A week later, he made amends by writing the name Rozelle on his headband instead. The commissioner had a good laugh, but still fined him. And the commish also warned him not to wear anything unacceptable for their next game, which was the Super Bowl. While the team was doing the Super Bowl shuffle, a local TV station reported that McMahon had called New Orleans women sluts. I mean, that's pretty believable. McMahon denied making the remark and got justice when the announcer fessed up to making it up. As a result, McMahon said he received death threats for the made-up comments and ended up wearing a different jersey number at practice, trying to throw off potential snipers. Yes, this really happened. To lighten the mood the week before the game, McMahon showed his ass to a helicopter hovering above one of the Bears' practices, much to the delight of his head coach. All of that was probably more interesting than the game itself. The Patriots took an early 3-0 lead before the Bears went on a 46-7 run to close them out. McMahon would call the game boring and said the whole week was mostly a pain. McMahon didn't write anything out of line on his headband, just the word Pluto, a nickname for his former teammate Dan Plater, whose NFL career was cut short due to a brain tumor. Jim was never afraid to voice his opinion. After the passing of George Hollis's grandson Michael McCaskey ran the Bears, and McMahon was asked who he wanted Chicago to draft in 1986, and he said, a new owner. And not much has changed since that quote. Still, a year later, the Bears were firing on all cylinders, but for the second time in 3 years, their run was halted by a McMahon injury. And this time, it was different. Playing the rival Packers at home, McMahon let a pass go, and about 10 seconds later was body slammed by defensive end Charles Martin. McMahon tore his rotator cuff and missed the rest of the season. That was a cheap shot. As for Martin, he was ejected from the game and suspended another 2. Seems hardly fair. McMahon said he knew it was coming. He claimed that the hit was authorized by Packers head coach Forrest Gregg out of a general dislike of McMahon and a vendetta against Mike Ditka. Off the field in Chicago, it appeared that McMahon was making up for all the partying he missed while he was at BYU. He hung out with rock stars in London before an '86 preseason game, rubbing elbows with Ringo Starr, the Bee Gees, Phil Collins, and Rod Stewart. The group went back to Barry Gibb's house of the Bee Gees and kept it going until the sun came up. There was probably more powder there than a fresh snow in Park City. According to teammates, it took several pitchers of beer for McMahon to even get remotely drunk. The only guy who could drink more than him was the fridge, William Perry, former Bears guard Kurt Becker said. Before a game against the Bengals in 1986, McMahon stayed up all night gambling across the Ohio River. He woke up hungover and threw 3 touchdown passes in a win. After leaving the Bears in 1989 armed with the best winning percentage in Chicago's modern era history, McMahon embarked on a journeyman career, bouncing around the league with stints with the San Diego Chargers, Philadelphia Eagles, Minnesota Vikings, Arizona Cardinals, Cleveland Browns, and eventually, yes, the Green Bay Packers. McMahon spent 2 years with the team that allegedly put out a hit against him. He was under a different head coach, of course, and he sat behind future volleyball court builder Brett Favre. In McMahon's second year with the Packers, Green Bay won it all, 11 years after he had led the Bears to a Lombardi, and in the same city of New Orleans. After the win, McMahon and the rest of the team traveled to meet Bill Clinton at the White House. Unable to go more than several seconds without incident, McMahon decided to wear a Bears jersey to the event, causing a lot of uproar. He explained that he wore the Bears jersey because he never got to in 1986. 2 days after Super Bowl 20, the Challenger shuttle exploded and the meeting with Ronald Reagan was canceled. Super Bowl 31 would end up being his last game. McMahon made headlines once again after retirement when he admitted to suffering from early onset dementia, which he attributed to the numerous concussions he had sustained throughout his career. This revelation sparked a broader conversation about the long-term health risks associated with playing football and raised questions about the NFL's handling of player safety. McMahon said in 2010 that he sometimes walks into rooms and forgets why he's there. Despite the controversies that followed him, McMahon remains a beloved figure in the world of football. His fearlessness, resilience, and unapologetic personality endeared him to fans and teammates alike. He's been very open about his post-career struggles with mental health and the consequences of both taking shots and taking hits. Today, he's a family man, an advocate, and still probably the strangest quarterback in NFL history. Hey, speaking of things that aren't strange, you should try my coffee, the 5 Points Blend. It's a light roast, so that means there's more caffeine, and it's made from ethically sourced Arabica beans. Go to benchwarmerbrew.com from the link below and get the 5 Points Blend, either ground or unground. Again, that's benchwarmerbrew.com, the 5 Points Blend.